Foundation profited millions of dollars on the vaccines. Millions and millions of dollars. It's all easy to find. And then once he dumped the stock, then he completely changed his narrative and he started talking about how ineffective the vaccines were and about how the virus wasn't as bad as we thought it was and about it was mostly targeting old and obese people. Like, this is fucking wild because this is the same guy that through the entire pandemic was talking about how great these vaccines are and these vaccines are so effective and they stop the virus and they stop transmission, they stop infection, and all that was a lie. And he profited off those lies. Yes. And no, everyone wants to pretend that he's just like this amazing philanthropist. Like, no, he made a lot of money. This is motivated by money, and his entire career he's been motivated by money. Yeah. I mean, he's been a guy who is really good at monopoly, and that was why they went after Microsoft so many times for monopolistic practices. I mean, he's a businessman, and in that time, his business was the business of telling people things that he's not educated in. Right? He's not a scientist. He's not a virologist. He's not a medical doctor.
He's not even a college graduate.
He was this public health advocate on television telling everybody to go out and get this medical intervention that he would profit from, which is fucking wild. It's really wild that it's that transparent, that it's not like multiple steps and shell corporations and it's really difficult to find out where the money's going. It's like, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy how transparent it is. You're not even hiding it. It's right there.
And just to back up what Joe said, here is Bill Gates about a year ago, and he started to admit about the virus, what we all knew, and here it is.
And then at that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. You know, we didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different than that.
So there he was admitting that the virus wasn't as deadly and as scary as everybody he made it out to be, so he could mandate vaccines that he's invested in. It wasn't. Turns out it was like the flu. Like, it's just really elderly people and people who are obese and comorbidities need to worry about it. So probably we shouldn't be injecting kids with that and healthy young people and giving them all kinds of things. And so here he is now after he cashed in his stock. This is what he says now after he cashed in his stock.
We also need to fix the three problems with vaccines. The current vaccines are not infection blocking. They're not broad, so when new variants come up, you lose protection. And they have very short duration, particularly in the people who matter, which are old people. And every one of those things is...
So that's what he's saying now. And if I would have said that stuff, they would have taken my YouTube channel down. But now Bill Gates, the guru of vaccines, gets to say it because he already cashed out his money. He got $500 million. Go ahead.
Well, every one of those three things he said would get you deplatformed.
That's right.
Or I said them, which, they did. And we were saying that from day one. We knew it wasn't going to. I said in May of 2020, I said these vaccines are DOA because in the monkey trials, the monkeys that were vaccinated had the same amount of COVID in their nasal pharynx once they were exposed to coronavirus as the vaccinated monkeys and unvaccinated monkeys had the same amount. So there's no benefit for transmission. And yet Gates was saying at that time, and you can look up this tape too, and Fauci, if you get it, you can't pass it to your grandmother. You can't pass it to anybody else. And they knew that was a lie. I don't know he knew it was a lie. He may only be getting information from one person who's talking to him, but if he was actually looking at any of the data from the companies that he had invested hundreds of millions of dollars in, like AstraZeneca, he would be saying, oh gosh, the monkeys that we paid for in this study, which is the critical animal study that's going to show us whether or not it works or doesn't, it didn't work. So he had to know that. He had to know it. I mean, I'm sure he was waiting every day, getting up and saying, has the monkey study come in yet? Has the monkey study come in yet? Well, when it came in, everybody knew what it meant. It meant that this vaccine would never prevent transmission, which means it is a criminal act to give a leaky vaccine that does not provide sterilizing immunity during a pandemic. Because what you're doing is everybody who gets that vaccine now becomes a factory for mutant variants that are escape variants. And it's the same thing as if you give somebody subtherapeutic antibiotics. that person is now a factory for antibiotic resistant bacteria. If you give somebody a leaky vaccine during the pandemic, he's going to get infected. The microbe, the pathogen is not going to be eliminated. It's going to see into the enemy, and it is going to selectively breed escape variants that can escape that vaccine. And you're going to have a continual pandemic that will never end because everybody is mutating constantly. Where we all become mutant factories if you took it, which I didn't.
So no, that is such an important piece of information because I had that information in mid-2021. And that a leaky vaccine was that's not the thing that you wanted to do in the middle of a pandemic, and that it actually the vaccinated people were the ones who would create the virulent new strains. And now they told people the opposite. So the media, the big pharma funded media, the people in the government, they told people that it was the unvaccinated that became a factory for new strains of the virus. That's what they were told. And that if you got vaccinated, that would stop you from mutating. It was the exact opposite. Now, I knew that, and nobody else, none of my friends in Hollywood, nobody in comedy, nobody knew that except me, and they thought I was crazy. And now they still think that, by the way. They still think that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I don't have anything to add. It was all about, blaming the vaccinated. It was about, the unvaccinated and making sure everybody got covered, that you were intimidated into it, you were gaslighted, you were embarrassed, you were marginalized, you were vilified. And, and then it was, the pitchforks and torches. They were trying to get everybody else to put pressure on you.